Okay, so let me explain the rules of the podcast.
No cursing?
No, none of that.
You can curse.
Fuck yeah.
At about...
I listened to the most interesting podcast the other day, and it was this guy who's really good at relationships, and it was so fascinating. And you just, like, when you hear somebody like that, you're like, why do I suck so bad at that? Right? Like, why don't I do that? So he just anything. Like, some guy at my open house over the weekend was telling me, like, the daughter's telling me, oh, my birthday is on December whatever, right? And it's like, he would take that, even though he doesn't have that guy yet, he hasn't landed that guy, he would take that, put it in the database. Every single thing, every single person he meets, he would put them in and then try to build that relationship. And as he hears things, anything. Like, what's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? Like, boom, boom, boom. And then you always, if that person calls you and you haven't talked to them in a year, you have your notes and, like, remember everything about them.
You know what the foundation of my business is? You just described it. Do you know the actual sentence that I say the foundation of my business is?
I just got one of your t-shirts, but
technology plus personal touch is a perfect client experience. So not only does he's got technology helping him in the back end, but he's really focusing on what does a personal touch look like? Like, life is not always just dollars and cents. Sometimes you just need a mental hug.
Well, that's the thing. He said in it that he just wants people to know that he cares, and business will come from that, right? It's not necessary. Not every touch is asking for business or anything like that. It's because that's a thing you're always told. Like, you should always eventually try to spin it back into, like, hey, do you know anybody looking to buy or sell? Which is great. But he's all about, like, hey, how many times can I be in front of these people in a year and show them that I truly care?
Welcome to the hot seat, Mr. Nathan Hanlon. I've been dying to get you on here. Actually, you started this. You started this podcast.
I know, that's what
you were so concerned about your flipping hair that day.
Well, because I just rolled out of bed and I came in here to grab...
Noon.
It was not noon. It was like 9 a.m.
It was 11.
No, it was not.
And you triggered this whole thing for us of how fun would this be to really get to know people and get to know about their business. So let's talk about your business. I have known you for how many years now? When you first started, right?
No, because I've been doing it since, I don't even know how long. I've been in the real estate industry since 19. That's what kind of got me into it. And then I have been selling residential real estate for, I think, 7 or 8 years now.
Okay.
And I want to say we met 2019.
I think we met 2019.
Because then I bought my house with you.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that was maybe my first loan with you.
So I'm going to go on record. I'm going to look at the camera. My favorite real estate agent of all time is this guy sitting right here. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay.
Can we pan to Robin right now?
You're funny. You are so funny. You critique yourself like nobody else's business. So you're always in competition with yourself. But you see what other people are doing, and at first it gets to you. Maybe I should be doing this. I got to put this pen away. I like to talk with pens. Maybe I should be doing this. Maybe I should be doing that. And you make your business more serious with your funny side of it, and it turns into this really well blended whole real estate agent. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. So first of all, my favorite thing to do in life is to laugh. And then what was that? It wasn't a Chewbacca outfit. What is it called? Bigfoot. You did the big Sasquatch. There you go. You did the huge Sasquatch outfit. You had a whole pumpkin on your head. You had the little pony where it was like WTF. There was a miniature pony walking around somebody's house. I've seen you like straight jump and like fall face first, even if a like mattress was catching you or whatnot. I've seen you dive into pools. Like I get so much on my social feed of real estate agents, and it's always the same thing. And that's not knocking them because it is what it is.
Yeah.
But you take such a unique spin on it to where your marketing, the way you do things, I watch again and again and again, and I legit like belly laugh. And I don't belly laugh that much anymore.
Well, I think for me, it was when I first got into the industry, it was you do it this way, right? You are, which I get in a lot of senses, right? Like you can't be funny with everybody, right? Some
No.
people, like you always talk about the DISC test, how you got to see how people want to be talked to and worked with. So for me, that's the hard thing. But I was kind of taught you can't be funny. You can't do this. This is a serious thing because it is a serious thing.
It's
I'm
the
not saying it's
biggest
not serious.
transaction of someone's life.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
seen you in I've never seen someone fight for their client and care and ruminate and lose sleep like you.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
nonsensically, where I want to chase you around like your wife and hit you over the head with a frying pan. Like, calm it down. You care so much.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I try to work, and it's not caring less. Like I just need
The ways
to
that
be
you
able to
care.
turn off my switch,
Yes.
right? Because I go home and I'm still like, how can I get their offer accepted? How can I this? Like,
I know.
and that's like what I'm thinking about 24/7.
This is not a thing to even make you look better. This is really almost a character flaw for you when you're
Oh,
trying to be
100%.
present with family.
100%, because I'll be at home and that's all I'm thinking about.
Mhm.
And I think that's what makes you great when it comes to being good at a career
Mhm.
and a business is it is a flaw. The fact that you cannot turn it off,
Mhm.
right? Like there is not a second I go throughout the day where I'm not thinking about like, oh man, what if I did this or what if I do
Mhm.
this? Like how can I get to this point? Like where is my next 5, 6, 7, 8 transactions
Beautiful.
coming from?
So I think that's half of it. That's half the story. So you have to, that's what an it personality has. They have to genuinely care. They have to be authentic. Um, they have to be obsessive. But I'm reading this book right now and it's really resonating that we're missing the mark. And I actually want you to read this book. It's called Scaling Up. And it talks about any of the biggest players. Oh my God, don't make fun of me. What's the guy? Apple is Steve Jobs. What's Microsoft? Who owns Microsoft?
Bill
Bill
Gates.
Gates. Thank you, sir. Told you not to laugh. It talks about how people that have well-run businesses, first of all, it takes about 20 years to get it to a fleshed out part. That's number one. Number two is their obsessiveness is all consuming, where they actually had to read a book in the morning. They had to quiet their brain. They had to do something. And a lot of it was reading book after book after book after book to not think about what they have to do in their business, but to get outside perspective consistently. So I'm reading this book. I just started it, but I'll read it every single morning. And it's one of those things that resonates. I'm just as obsessive. But if you're always obsessive about your own stuff, you'll never be able to grow enough out of your own head without help like coaching or like books to give you a different perspective to help
Yeah.
you grow the needle.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you hear things like I was telling you earlier about that podcast I listened to
Yeah.
about relationships. You hear something like that and you're like, why am I not doing this? Right. So that's why it's good to go outside of and see what other people are doing. But for me, I think I get too much. Like, right. Because then you listen to this great podcast and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to incorporate that in my business. But then you have some free time or downtime and you listen to this other podcast and you're getting all these
Yeah.
different things instead of writing down like, no, is how I'm going to focus
Just
my
focus
business. Yeah, on this one
on this
thing.
one thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's so important to know.
And that's where I think we get mixed up. Like, there's so many people on like doing social media, doing this, doing this, doing that, but then you're half-assing everything.
You're a jack
Right?
of all trades, a master of none.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's also something that I spoke about today, just right before I got here is pick 3 things you want to focus on for the next 6 months. And if other things come at you, table them, write them down, put them somewhere,
Yeah.
but focus on those 3 things.
I mean, you definitely have to plant your seeds everywhere,
Well,
right? Like,
that's prospecting.
yeah.
Right? That's not necessarily a focus of a personality thing that you're going to do. Like you're going to connect more. So tell me, how are you going to connect more? How are you going to be that relationship guy? Walk me through what that looks like. Just spitball it. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think really going and fine tuning a database to that person in particular and writing down everything I know and then everything I learned throughout the years on them. So I have all that info. Like I have, oh, they went to this school or they do this or their kids' names or that, or they just
How to
had
be
a pet,
stalker. Like,
Yeah, I mean, but that's,
but what else? Are you going to call them up?
yeah,
It's their kid's
of
birthday.
course. But it's getting to know everybody, I think, at a higher level, right? Because when it comes down to it, you said something about watching this video of the Blues Clues guy, and people just want that personal connection.
Comments. They're so sad.
Oh.
I'm not doing good right now. My dad just died. It's really hard out there. I want to, do something else. Like, I spend too much time in those comments wanting to hug and kiss everybody.
But that's, I
do.
think, what we're missing
It's true.
in society today is that personal connection and that personal relationship.
That feel too.
So we talked about like kind of transitioning my business into the, I was set like, this is how it needs to be. You cannot be funny. And I think it was when I had my son, I was like, no, screw this. I don't want him to look back and be like, Dad's this boring, because that's not who I am, right? This boring, like, he goes to the office, he does this.
To 2 hour when you're in here, you are never boring, ever.
I think you look back and you're like, what do I want to be known for? And obviously, when it comes to business, like, business is business, right? You want to be known for your family. You want your kids to look at you and think like you were the best dad. Like, you could care less about how many people you impacted in your business when it comes down to it. But also, I want them to look at my business as like, wow, he really did. He took something and turned it into something that he loves and did it his own way. He didn't just sit back and follow everybody. So
walk me through, we've been together for the last 5 years, and I've watched you get your feet underneath you in terms of an agent. I've watched you figure out your own voice as an agent, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. I've watched you beat yourself up over and over and over again. So walk me through where the journey is now. What do you like in terms of what are you very comfortable in your own skin with? And what are you still beating yourself up about?
That's a good. See, I think I beat myself up every day about so many things, right?
You break my heart sometimes with how big of a critic you are.
So you're talking about the DISC test. I forget what it's called, but we have friends and they had us do this test like that, right? That tells you, it gives you 1 through 7 or 10 or whatever, and what you are. And I'm definitely a person who I'll have a conversation with somebody and then I'll go back and dwell on it for the rest of the day. Like, how could I have improved that conversation?
Say something wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm like, what are they thinking about me? And I think real estate has kind of ruined me in that sense. I hate to say it, but it's like, if you lose a listing appointment, it's because they don't connect with you, right? You can show them any flashy marketing, any flashy this, but people want to work with people they feel comfortable with, and they connect with. That's how it's always going to be. Yeah. So there's 3 types of personalities that build trust. There's your charming personality. I'm not charming. I really would love to be charming. So you could think of some people that are just charming and that's how they build trust. Yeah. There are those people that are natural connectors that can really build trust. And there are those people that have to bring value to help build trust. So I'm a value person and I try and I work on being a connector because I genuinely want to connect. I just trip over myself on how to do it. I feel like for you're so funny, you're partly charming, but you really genuinely care that you're a real connector as well. Not that you don't bring value. Yeah, of course. I mean, you're great at it. I think everybody wants to be liked by others when it comes down. I really don't give a shit. You just okay. Just kidding. I'm kidding. So the things I dwell on, and I think I could improve, is client connection, right? I think I do a really good job at it and showing people I care. I mean, I don't know anybody, and this isn't like egotistic or anything like that. I don't know anybody who does more for their clients. I've yet to meet some. I know 1 or 2 people who do a lot and they do a really, really good job at it. I'm not saying that people don't do a good job. Yeah. To a fault, you do more for your clients than anybody I've ever seen. You care more, you stress about it more, you ruminate more, you lose sleep over it more, you go over and beyond to your self-sacrifice for your clients because you care that much. Yeah. So it's one of those things, and I've talked to you about it for years. Do you really have to do this? Do you really have to do that? Because you just care so much. But I think you get to a point too where it's like you want everybody to see that, and nobody's ever going to see that, right? Like, I mean, that's the sad reality of it, right? Like, you just like how much you are very successful and do very well, but people don't see how much blood, sweat, and tears went into getting to the point you are, and still how much is going on with it, right? And you have to come to the realization at some point that not everybody is going to notice that you're.
No.
And it's hard for me too when I see somebody working with a real estate agent who is doing a very poor job representing their client. I always go back and I'm like, why didn't they meet me? Like,
Right.
I could have done a way better job than them. I could have made the transaction. Or it's like when somebody tells you a negative experience about a real estate agent.
I know.
They're all over the internet. It's like, well, maybe if they just met me and had a transaction with me and like somebody who, or somebody like me, somebody who truly cared and like held their hand and said, no, we're going to do all this to make sure your house is showcased in the best way possible. I'm going to do this and this just so it's a stress-free sale. They would be saying positive things instead of negative things.
Negative. Yep.
See, I hate these podcasts because I feel like I talk too much.
No, you don't. And I talk with my hands too, by the way.
How terrible is it?
All right. The other thing I love, okay, so we're funny. We beat ourselves up. We're obsessive. But do you actually know what your secret sauce is?
What do you mean? What does that mean?
You've got a secret sauce. And no, it's not a baby making sauce. Get your head out of the gutter.
I don't have that anymore, but that's how I felt when this was getting set up. I felt like I was getting a vasectomy all over again. Like I was like people doing all this stuff, doors closing. I'm like
Scared?
just waiting.
That's amazing. You keep what is most important to you, your family, at the forefront. And it doesn't matter how much revenue you generate. I mean, you do great as a real estate agent. It matters. What I look at is profitability. So let's say that you cut your commission to help a client out, which I've seen you do over and over again. You're also watching your expenses and you're cheap in the most loving of ways, because what matters most to you is making sure your family is taken care of. So can I share what you called me up about 2 weeks ago with regards to the house and the recast?
Oh yeah.
So he doesn't owe much on his house whatsoever. Like he got it at a good price at the right time, and you also put a decent size down payment on it. And the house payment is what? It's like pennies.
Yeah, it's not very expensive at all, but it's still the fact that I have this. I called Laura because obviously I'm not dumb when it comes to finances,
not
right?
dumb.
I know that I'm at a super low interest rate. I know that if I were to put money, say, in the stock market, it would make more money.
Right. Opportunity cost.
Than that 3.25% interest rate that I'm at.
Right.
But it's just, I called her because you're my go-to for advice, life advice, business advice, financial advice. You'll always be that person for me because I think you do such a good job at managing everything. And you've been down multiple
rabbit holes
that I'm just going down in my life now.
So he called me to say, should I put, $50,000 down or $50,000 more to drop my payment even further, just in case something happens to me?
We'll talk about recasting first, though, because nobody knows about recasting, and lenders don't talk about recasting.
So recasting is actually, it's not every lender can do it. What a recast is, one time during the life of the loan, you could put a chunk down. That chunk can be as low as $1,000.
Some companies allow you to do it multiple times.
Some do, but it's actually rare. And you spend, I don't know, $100 to $300. You put that, and you just keep the same interest rate, the same term, and you just lower your payment. And for him, I told him, don't do it. Your payment's already low. I'd rather see that money go elsewhere. But you are so cognizant about if something were to happen to me, I want to make sure Zoe doesn't have to stress out. Zoe's his wife. I don't want to make sure she doesn't have to stress out too much. The way you handle your finances, the way that you are protecting your family, your nest egg, and the way that you ruminate on how to get better and you're always beating yourself up, you've boxed yourself in. There's no choice but for you to be successful. And you box yourself into the type of father your kids are going to look back at you and laugh because you're hilarious. They're going to look back at you to see that you chose them over work and you balanced even though it made you crazy on the inside. They're going to look back at you and be like, oh my God, my dad saved this much money. He taught me how to do things the right way. I'm serious, Nathan. You are a diamond. And a lot of the things that you think, as much as you beat yourself up and always think this person's doing it better, this person's doing it better, you're still figuring 20 years to have a really good business. So you're still figuring out your voice and what you want to be. But if you take one or two things a year and you focus on it, you're going to be like the finest of wines that people will spend a lot of money to savor and drink when they get there.
I hope so. I mean, I definitely look at it, and like you were talking about, what are the things I look at, and I'm like, what can I perfect? I think everything. I don't think there's one thing that I can't perfect, right? Even if it's just this much, right? Even if it's just calling the client more frequently if there's somebody who needs that daily call or something like that. Like there's always something you can improve on, I think, and that's I'm always looking at that, and I'm very critical of every single thing I do because I want to, like, deep down, I want to be the best,
I
right?
know.
Like, I want to be, like, and it's not never about money for me, which everybody finds super
But that's the most
weird.
brilliant thing about you is you're authentic.
Yeah, because a lot of people get into this business with like, oh, look at this person driving a luxury car, when you really look into the industry and like half the people driving those can't afford them.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Like half the people in this industry, it's all smoke and mirrors, right? They're selling 2, 3 homes a year and trying to give this false narrative
I
that,
know.
look at me, I'm successful, when they're not, you know? So I think I look at it as, it's not about money. I want to sell more homes than anybody else, and I want to help more people. Like
Families.
we talked about that agent, those agents you look at and you're like we all see them. They have like crappy cell phone photos of a house or
Yep.
this and that, and you're like, oh my gosh, that house has been on the market for like 30 days, or they've done 5 price drops. If they let me market their home, I would have sold it for that price or over asking. Like, why am I not in front of those people?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, deep down, I do want to be the best. I do want to, sell more homes than anybody else. But also, I have that family thing where I want to be the best dad and I want to be
Well,
in
you
front of the
ruminate about
kids.
both of
Yeah.
them. And so you are doing both. You are
Yeah.
consistently doing better. The process. Sales is one thing, but sorry, I'm kicking you all over here.
Whoa.
Sales is one thing, but did you know that the biggest producers out there actually have a uniform process that they figured out problem solution over and over and over? Here's what I mean. So, 30 minutes every single day, I actually have a meeting specifically around where did we fail and what can we do to fix it. I call it problem solution, problem solution.
When? Every 30 minutes?
Every day for 30 minutes.
Oh, I was like,
From 9 to 9:30 and an hour on
yeah.
Fridays. So for instance, if an agent has to follow up with me with where we are for the client, I failed. If an agent has to ask me when the appraisal's coming in and I haven't already sent them like, hey, it's due on this time, I failed. So all of those touch points, like call the clients more, I started breaking down every time someone reaches out to me, every time somebody does this, that, this, that, the other, so I could have something helping me to remind me to do it because it's constant. So, like kids' birthdays, let's say your neighbor has a kid's birthday, you're not necessarily going to remember your kid's birthday, but if you sat down and you started thinking about your tech stack, like what are you going to use to help you to remember to pick up the phone? I think that's where a lot of a lot of where the money is to being able to help more families.
It's about that long-term relationship,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think it's funny, like, in this business, everybody asks you, well, how'd you get that listing? How'd you get this? How'd you get that? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just real estate agents who get those questions it's always by other real estate agents,
I've
right?
never gotten that question.
Yeah, all the time. Everybody gets it. And I remember one of the brokerages I was used to be at, the broker told me that was her least favorite question. And I think it's so true. Like it's like some of my listings, it's been 5 years in the making of constantly taught. Like they call me 5 years ago thinking about selling, and it doesn't end up happening, but you stay in contact with them and you stay consistent and in front of them. So yes, being in front of people as much as you possibly can
Yes.
is the goal.
Yes.
And caring, people want to work with people they like. I know I said that earlier, but that's That's what it comes down to.
So I'm going to ask you a couple hot seat questions. You ready?
I already read that list, so I know I have all them memorized.
Ugh,
Just kidding. I couldn't read the font. It was too tiny for me.
thank God. Okay. At what point did you realize that you don't need to be good at business to own a successful business?
Ooh. At what point did I realize?
Uh-huh.
I didn't actually realize that.
You haven't realized that yet?
No. I thought I had to get better at business to continue to succeed.
Well, you've been talking about it
No,
all the time.
I think yeah, I mean it's true. You have to be good at relationships, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But that is business. Business is relationship. It's like, it's funny. I was literally just having a conversation with somebody on the way here about a job. They used to work at a grocery store, and they said, something that always stuck with them, and everybody knows this: the client is always right.
Mhm.
The customer is always right.
Mhm.
So if you put that in your business, I mean, I think that's client relationship, right? You want to build that client relationship so they feel like they're always right, and they feel like, I don't know. That
So it's
doesn't,
not just
yeah.
about the numbers to you. It's about the families. It's about the relationships. It's
Oh, yeah.
about doing what's right when no one is looking.
I genuinely get bummed when people come into my open houses and I like connect with them, and then they never follow up with me. I'm like, I just want to be your friend. Like, you seem so cool. Like there's a guy who came into my open house this week, and I felt like we hit it off, right? Maybe he gave me a fake number. I don't know. He hasn't texted me back yet or responded to me. And I'm like,
I just want to be.
I just want to be your friend.
It's Nathan.
I don't care about selling you a house. Like, I want to help you. Like, it seems fun to go show you a bunch of houses. Like, you seem like a really cool person, and your family seems really cool.
All right. Here's another one. What are some of the challenges of growing in business, but also staying authentic?
Ooh, so that's actually a good question that I notice a lot, because I feel look at a lot of people with large businesses. And talking about the personal touch, I feel like you get to a point where it's so hard to have that personal touch with people. So the larger, I'm not there. Hopefully, when I get there, I continue to do that, because that's what my business is based on. But it's so transactional when you get to a certain point. It's just a numbers game.
Unless you make it about personal touch.
Exactly. So that's the big kind of thing, is how do you stay connected to those people as you grow and get busier and busier.
So what would be the one piece of advice for budding real estate agents that are trying to find their voice and their footing in this world?
I don't know what that is. Budding real estate agent?
Budding, like a rosebud, like.
Oh, budding. Oh, I thought you were talking about their butts. Yeah.
No.
Budding real estate agents. I think
You in 2019, 2018, what would you tell yourself?
I think I would have told myself to just, I mean, I did a really good job back then, staying in front of people. I think in some areas I did a better job because I didn't have kids.
I was going to say, you're a dad now, you're part of
Yeah, I didn't have kids. I had more time to focus it on those relationships and everything like that. But I think just staying in front of people and knowing that it takes a long time, like just like in this business, it takes a long time to get to a point where you're truly succeeding and have consistent business. You have to put years and years and years into it. You have to do the same thing with these relationships. You have to put years and years and years into these relationships before it turns into business and referrals and other things like that. Okay.
So final thoughts. What is going to be the 1 to 2 things that you're going to focus relentlessly, aggressively focus on this year?
So you know me really well. You know I'm just kind of like, blah, 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 like everywhere.
You're refining though.
Yeah, but
the more kids you have, I mean, I still think Zoe should just keep on having kids. The more it stresses you out, the more it zeroes you in. It's a whole thing to watch.
Yeah, so
You're like my favorite telenovela, but it's only with like your stress levels.
I'm just throwing darts everywhere though, and like seeing what sticks kind of thing. And I think you always do that to an extent because you want to see like if something else is better than what you're doing. But I think just really getting into my database and really refining that and getting a better database. We talked about this for years. I just never did it. I like my little spreadsheet.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has different things.
There's your way. It's your,
I'm cheap, so I'm like,
I know.
$100 a month for a database?
I know.
Like,
You would die to know how much I spend.
yeah, exactly. So I think just really refining my database and constantly building on that client relationship and client connection. Even just things like birthdays and
Yeah.
things like that. Because before kids, I was so much better at birthday stuff.
Right.
And then you get busy. You know, the kids are like last night, baby was up all night. You
Right.
know, I mean, obviously Zoe feels that more than me because she's breastfeeding and
Right.
stuff like that. But you're tired and your day's thrown off, and you might get in, start working a little later, and then like
You did your hair.
you're
I'm
like,
proud of you.
yeah, you're like, do I really want? Do I have time to drive this birthday gift over to this client's house or this or that? So just time managing with that stuff too.
I think you're fantastic. I think my advice for a new agent out there is to find someone in this business that's authentic, that is trying really hard and has their priorities right. And you are one of my key people for them.
Can you send the clip to me that when she talked into the camera and said I was her favorite, just so I can play it on repeat? Every time she calls me, it will come up and like, like come up.
Thank you for coming on the podcast. It wasn't too bad now, was it?
No,
See?
it wasn't bad.